with your host of Unpacking It, Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to Unpacking It. I'm Bryce Johnson. Hope you're doing great. Today on the show, I am joined by an amazing Emmy Award-winning sports broadcaster whose life away from the cameras we are going to unpack. Ernie Johnson can be seen covering the NBA, MLB, golf, and he joins us now. Ernie, how are you?
Bryce, if I were doing any better, I'd be jealous of myself. How about you?
I love it. That's the best. I'm doing great and enjoying the summer. And I'm curious for you, what does the summer look like now that the NBA season is over and you're able to spend some time just kind of relaxing a little bit this summer?
Well, I get a little bit of time to decompress right when the playoffs are over. But then baseball kicks in, and
True.
I do the game of the week on TBS on Sundays. We kind of rotate a few announcers in and out. So right now I'm in the middle of a 4-week stretch of baseball. Then I have the PGA Championship in Rochester, and then more baseball. So I have a little time to breathe, but then it's back to work. But not so much that I don't get to relax at the house.
Well, that's great. And what about going on any vacations?
That's a little tough. It's my wife and I were able to escape for about a week and we have a bunch of kids. So it's like we have our two oldest ones, our 3 oldest ones actually pitched in a lot to take care of some of the younger guys. So it gave us a nice little break to get out of town, just me and Cheryl, which is pretty rare these days.
Oh, man, well, it's good that you were able to get away. And I'm curious because you've been married to her for 30 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be 31 in August.
Wow, congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Because I'm getting married in August, and so to hear guys that are setting the standard is motivating to me. So what's kind of your secret or your advice to last in 30 years?
You know what, I've people ask that, and I just say, communication is huge. You got to talk everything out. You can't keep anything inside and say, oh, I'll get through it. Things just have to be addressed sometimes, and just honest. And she says we're still married because I make her laugh every day. So most of the time that's unintentional. But I think that kind of thing. I think communication is the most important thing, and just especially when the kids come along, it's teamwork. I mean, it's a united front. It's one of those things where you're on the same page all the time on how are we going to handle this, so that the kids can't say, well, let's go to dad because we'll get away with this. No, mom and dad are a team. So that's a little advice, probably way more than you need to hear at this point.
No, that's excellent. No, I appreciate that. And even at this point, just looking down the line at kids, it's still good to hear that advice. And you mentioned your kids, and you have 6 of them. And I'm just kind of curious, kind of maybe an update on some of them and how they're doing, especially your son Michael with muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, it's the short story on all of that is we had 2 kids. In the first 5 years we were married, and then we adopted a little boy from Romania. That's Michael. We adopted a little girl from Paraguay who's now 20. That's Carmen. And then just as we were getting to the point where kids were getting out on their own and getting married and going to college, then we adopted a couple of little girls out of foster care in Ohio. So they've been with us for 2 years. Family of 6, and it's a circus, man. It's working without a net, but it's the greatest thing in the world. And thanks for asking about Michael. He's 4 of our kids are special needs. 3 of our kids are special needs, and Michael was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy shortly after we got him back from Romania back in '91, and he'll be 25 in August, which is really cool. But he got really sick back in the fall of 11. He had pneumonia, and I had to miss the baseball playoffs because he was in the hospital for 7 weeks and had to go on a ventilator, which he is still on and always will be, which does the work for his lungs. But he's we still get him, around. He goes and does stuff with us, and it just takes us. We've got a small ICU in his room. We got so many machines and stuff that we have to hook him up to at different times. But great kid, and we are blessed to have all six. Still seems strange to say six, but yeah, we are blessed every day beyond recognition.
That's neat. Well, what went into, I guess, a couple years ago adopting two more?
Man, I wish I could answer that for you, because it was, a lot of people said, "What are you, nuts?" and you know what? The thing is, we got to the point, and Michael is requires 24-hour care, and so he'll always be with us, so it's not like, well, boy, your last one went off to college, and you could have been empty nesters and gone out, and that wasn't the case at all,
Yeah.
And we're there for Michael, and then my wife is the CEO of a group called Street Grace, STREET, Grace, Street Grace, which fights child sex trafficking.
Oh.
And so we were talking a few years ago just about, who's affected by that. Is there a typical teenager or else who falls into that, where he or she is being trafficked and that kind of thing? And she said a lot of times it's kids out of foster care who age out of the program but have never really had a home, and somebody will pay some attention to them, and they can fall into that kind of a trap where this guy finally shows me affection or said that I mattered, and then all of a sudden they're in this other world which nobody saw coming. And so when we said, boy, if we could adopt, would we do that again? And would we get somebody a little older, somebody out of foster care? And that's kind of the genesis of how that happened. And then they put us in the system, and here we are down in Georgia being told to go meet a couple of girls in Cleveland who were 9 and 11 at the time, and had been in 5 or 6 different homes, and I'll be honest with you, Bryce, it's a struggle, dude. I mean, it's we've parented a lot of different situations here, but when we got into this, it's difficult, because you're basically dealing with kids who, as I said, have had those many homes, and what you're trying to do is kind of unpack 10 years of stuff and say, hey, this is the way it needs to be and is going to be. And so, it's a real adjustment period for them and for us, but, God's good. We're, every day is a new day, and we see progress, and we're just like, hey, we're in, and they're not our kids anyway. They're all his kids. The 6 that we have are all his. He's just, God's just kind of said, take care of these guys, and we're doing the best we can. That's
amazing, and I know that you kind of mentioned it there, alluded to your faith and having to rely on that and lean on that, especially through some of the difficulties that you've already mentioned, and that we'll maybe talk about in a little bit for you personally. But let's go back to 1997 when you became a Christian, and what can you share today about that life transformation that took place then, and really how it affects you now as you go through life?
Yeah, I mean, 97, I'm 41 years old in 1997. And it's funny, you kind of, you go through life, I was raised a Catholic, altar boy, the whole bit, and when I went away to college, at the University of Georgia, it's amazing how it suddenly started feeling real good to sleep in on Sunday morning, and and there aren't any parents here watching you.
That's right.
Yep. And so you kind of I got away from it, and then just the way I went through college and then into the business world, into radio and TV, and things are falling into place real nicely. I got a job here, good. Now I got this job. Okay, then I met Cheryl in Macon when I'm anchoring the news down there. And then we get married, and we start having kids, and it's like boy, look how good life can be. And I hadn't given God a second thought.
Mm.
And I was like, man, I did this all on my own. And then one day in '97, and this is in '97, we'd had 2 kids, we'd adopted 2 kids. In '97, we started looking at churches. We were kind of like, the kids should be being raised with some kind of spiritual background.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm with you. I said, we tried that a little bit when they were young. I said, but yeah, let's look at this again. And I went to this church that was near our house. It was a non-denominational church, and I picked up some information on a Sunday afternoon. My wife and I looked at it. We said, we'll give it a shot. And so we go to this place called Crossroads outside Atlanta. And the first Sunday I'm in here, the pastor, Kevin Myers, is delivering a message that I feel, and I know other people have been in this situation too. I felt like he was talking to me.
Oh yeah.
Like nobody else in the place mattered. And I was like, man, this guy is piercing me with what he's saying. And he was talking about whether you were pursuing happiness or wholeness in your life, who the provider was in your life, and every answer I was getting was wrong. Well, of course I'm pursuing happiness, and I'm the provider. And it's like, no, well, you should actually be pursuing wholeness, and no, there is a greater provider than even you. And as a few weeks and a couple of months went by, and Kevin and I were talking after a service one day, and I said, look, God's messing with me. I said, this is really so. He said, look, let's go have lunch. And we went out to an Old Charlie's down here in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I said, here's what's going on. And he said, you're a prayer away. And so
that's awesome.
We joined hands, and I basically turned my life over to Jesus Christ at this spiritual reawakening, and that was December 10th, 1997. I still remember I had the fried chicken salad with honey mustard on the side, and I remember the waiter coming up right as we were in the middle of this prayer. It says, you want any more sweet tea? I said, I'm good.
Oh,
I'm good. So
that's
so
classic.
So it was. It really is. It's a life-changing event. And then, so about 5 or 6 months later, my wife also made the commitment.
Oh, that's great.
In March of '98, and so we were both kind of in that realm where we said there's got to be more than my plan for this. I said there's got to be a bigger reason. There's got to be a reason we go through things. And we basically, it just went from a me-centered to a Christ-centered existence, and that was the total transformation.
Wow, incredible! Oh man, what a story! And I guess at that time you're on TV, you're well known, and so how did
that's the thing. But Bryce, that's the thing. That's I'm thinking I'm all that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is not about God. Look at where I'm at, and look what I did, and never once thinking, God, thanks for the voice. God, thanks for the opportunity. God, thanks for the wife. God, thanks. It's
That's
like
right.
It was all me, and I wasn't giving him the second thought. But the thing is, he had me in his sights the whole time,
Wow.
and that was what's awesome because I had put everything in my life, and my job was number one. I
bet.
And I would tell my wife and kids, oh yeah, you're number one in my life. But the way I was living, it was my job. I thought I was really something. And then to have that kind of a transformation and have God at the top of everything, because I can't be the husband I should be, I can't be the father I should be unless I acknowledge my heavenly Father. And so you'd be amazed at how things reprioritize, and then it's God, and then it's your wife, and it's your kids, and then your job is creeping. It's like, well, you look at the polls of this week, and Ernie's job took a dive to number 8. It was like, and I said, and you know what? I was fine with that. I was fine with that, taking the place it should be in my life. Certainly, it was still important to me. It was something I valued, but it wasn't what was the driving force or what I thought I would be remembered for when I left this earth. It would change to being a servant who realized why he was put here and how God might use it.
Definitely. And so then how did that practically, and we're all in process and all in growth, so how did that that change really, how did people see it? Like even the people that you worked with and showing up each day and how your mindset changed kind of realistically?
You know what? It's a good question. It's not like I went around and tapping everybody at work on the shoulder and had said, "Do you know Jesus Christ is your Savior?" It
True.
wasn't one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just basically, Bryce, how I started living my life and how I was treating people and how I think it was evident to them how I viewed my work. It was, I had really been rough on some people I worked with in the course of my career because I thought that I was pretty important, and I think those were the kind of things that they saw change. I think they probably saw that my language was a little cleaner too,
Oh.
and so. And I had to talk with a few people at work, and I said, "Look, it's a different me." I said, "I've been going to church. I checked this place out, and I've had a real awakening in my life as far as what's important and what's not, and
cool.
what should be the most important thing." And then what's cool is some of the opportunities that opened up. See, once you go public, once you let somebody know where your faith lies. And again, I'm not standing up on a soapbox in the middle of work and saying repent. I'm just saying that I get in a Bible study because a guy at my church is friends with a guy who used to be in charge of baseball chapel, and tried to be a major league pitcher, and he blew out his arm. His name is Tim Cash. He was doing baseball chapels for a long time, and then he started up a Bible study in the Atlanta area, and it was designed for guys who are kind of in the public. It was John Smoltz. It was Todd Peterson, the kicker for the Falcons. It was Jeff Foxworthy.
Wow.
It was a bunch of guys, and it was like, and it was. And I'm not saying it's not a celebrity thing. It's just for people who are in the public eye, who are going to be seen a lot and are going to be identified.
Definitely.
You're a Christian. And so we would gather on Thursdays, and we still do. I've been going to that thing now for 13, 14 years.
Very neat.
And we gather, and nobody walks in there as a Cy Young pitcher. Nobody walks in as a $1 million comedian. Nobody walks in there as a broadcaster. We walk in as men of God saying, "How we doing?" And it's a great time for frank discussion and open and honest dialogue, and just diving in the Word. And through that kind of thing, then you become known to a couple other folks who say, "Oh, my organization has this. Would you be willing to be the MC?" Like at the Chick-fil-A Bowl in Atlanta, I've been MCing the FCA breakfast for the past 10 years.
That's right.
Athletes in Action and FCA have something at the Final Four, the John Wooden Keys to Life breakfast that I MC every year. And it's amazing to watch how God takes you when you've got a certain platform and just says, because when I first became a Christian, I was like, do I need to get out of TV? Do I need to go do something else?
Really?
If I'm going to be on TV, do I need to be on a Christian radio station or a TV station? And it's like God said, "Look, you're in the perfect place. You'd be amazed at what I can do with you." And so that's the way it worked. And I think I've become known to our coworkers and to folks in the broadcasting business that, look, this is who I am, and this is the God who made me. This is the God who saved me. And I'm not ashamed to talk about it.
That's awesome. And you do make it very clear. And I'm also curious, though, when things come up, because I'm a huge fan of Inside the NBA, and there's things that are funny and potentially off color at times. How do you kind of handle that and know how to deal with it, I guess?
Well, I think it's, I always go back to the fact that God knows my heart.
True.
And I know I'm going to be in it. And you know what? If you're doing a basketball show and you're doing it with ex-players and it's a real free form, kind of a free for all.
That's right.
And there are going to be areas where they go sometimes. And sometimes I try to stay above it a little bit or not join right into it. But obviously you laugh at some stuff that goes on. But if it ever got to the point, and I've told folks before in our production meetings, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
If we do that, I'm not comfortable with that. Okay, good. And they appreciate me letting them know.
Oh, that's great.
But if but the way that show goes, man, I mean, there's no telling in the production meeting what's actually going to happen.
That's right.
At 2:00 in the morning. So, I think that folks would recognize that, and it's amazing sometimes the things that come up, stories that come up. When Kevin McHale's daughter died this past season, and I went up to Minnesota for the funeral, and I did that for Kevin because he's such a good friend. And then as we were flying home, I said, there should be more than this. The fact that I went to the funeral, I said, I want to do an essay on this for the show. And I was able to do that. And for me, it was an expression of my faith that I was able to put the words together to kind of talk about where Kevin and his family were at this point and how we felt about him. And so, yeah, I mean, there were times where I think, things come up where your faith can shine through.
Definitely. And it does, and you handle it. You handle it very well because I'm watching for it. I go, Ernie's in a tough spot here, but
believe me, I spot that a lot to myself. Ernie's in a tough spot here.
How does he get out? How does he get out? Go to break.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's
always a good way to do it. And we'll be right back.
That's good stuff. Well, and I guess kind of speaking of inside the NBA, and of course you're so well known because you're with Kenny and Charles and the chemistry that you guys have, and it appears that you guys are close on and off camera, and not that you have to share specific conversations that you have with those guys, but I'm just curious if the topic of faith comes up when you talk with those guys.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Without question. And it's interesting, too, because Charles and I have had a lot of those. In the green room when a game's going on, a lot of stuff is discussed. A lot of problems in the world are fixed. A lot of opinions are shouted out. A lot of games are watched. A lot of just generic TV is watched. There's a lot going on in there. And Charles and I have had some conversations where he says, "You believe everything that's in that Bible?" I said, "Yeah, Charles, I do." He said, "And you telling me that somebody can live a really bad life, and then they're about to die, and at the last minute they say, 'Okay, Jesus, I'm ready. I believe.'" And I said, "Well, I said, Charles, it's true." I said, "But here's the deal. He knows your motives and he knows your heart.
That's right.
He knows if you're just saying it, he knows if you are sincere, or if you're just trying to get out of something." And I said, "Hey, when Jesus was crucified, he had thieves on either side, and one of those guys was so sincere that Jesus said, 'Hey, today you'll be with me in heaven.'"
That's right.
And I said, so who knows what this guy's life was like, but in his last moments, his faith showed through, and it was evident. So I said, yeah, and to me, he's the God of baggage claim. He takes a lot of stuff. There's nothing that says, "Okay, you've lived too bad a life, you're well beyond salvation." That ain't the way it works. And I think that's the great thing too, and that it seems like a deal too good to be true, and it's the only one that I've come across that's actually true.
That's right.
And so that's sometimes what we talk about. And he talks about players that he played with who were Christian, and how he was turned off by some of them, how he really enjoyed Bobby Jones because Bobby didn't beat him over the head with it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what is really important to know. I mean, a lot of times you've got to take on a case-by-case basis how you approach somebody about that, because you can very easily turn them off. I think you have to get a chance to know people, and then kind of say, well, where are you spiritually? When you get to that point where it's obvious that I have concern for you, you have concern for me. We have a common bond here. Let's talk about some deep stuff. I think sometimes if you go up to a total stranger or somebody who's new on the job and just say, boom, sometimes the brick wall goes up, and if you had been a little more patient and said, let me get to know you a little bit, and then let's have some really good conversations. Sometimes that's a lot more effective.
Oh, I totally agree. And what a great perspective, even from a former NBA player, to say, hey, this guy did it this way, and this guy turned me off. This guy at least made me interested in it. So that's good.
If we got time, you got time to hear a Kenny the Jet Smith story?
Oh, absolutely.
That was really cool.
I've got all the time in the world.
Okay. Well, here's the deal with, Kenny tells me, I'm trying to think of what year it was. The Dallas Mavericks and San Antonio Spurs were playing for the Western Conference Championship. And so we have a studio on the road going back and forth between Dallas and San Antonio. And at one point in that series, and I'm thinking this is probably 05, 06, somewhere around there maybe, Kenny comes up to me. We're in the pregame show before like game 3. And we are in a commercial break. And Kenny gives me this sign, like, take your headset off for a second. And so I do, and he leans over and whispers to me, he says, you'll never guess who found God the other day. And I said, who? He said, me.
No.
And I said, well, you're picking a great time to tell me here. We got 20 seconds left in the break. And I said, we'll talk. So we go back and we finish the show. I asked him about it, and he says, well, here's the deal. He said, you remember in game 2, the producer was looking for me after halftime? And I said, yeah. He said they couldn't find me. They didn't know where. He says I was in the bathroom at Reunion Arena in Dallas, and I was on the floor of the bathroom sobbing because I had just surrendered and given up. I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't do this on my own, and I was just basically crying out to God.
Oh my goodness!
I said, wow, and I said, well, I said, Kenny, isn't that just like God? to take a guy whose every personal glory in the world had been on a basketball court, whether that's Archbishop Malloy up there in New York, to North Carolina, to championships with the Houston Rockets, to take a guy who has enjoyed every success on the basketball court and put him on the floor of a bathroom in an NBA arena and said, hey, I'm still here for you.
Oh,
And
amazing.
I said, that's God. I said, only he can do that with a life. And it was crazy because that's like the next night, I've known Max Lucado for a while, and we were in San Antonio. And so I had planned to go over to his house and grab a bite to eat. And I get over there and I tell him this story about Kenny. And then I drive back to the hotel. I got like 10 signed Max Lucado books for him.
Oh, good.
Kenny's so happy for you, et cetera. And now Max Lucado has become one of Kenny's son's favorite authors.
Oh,
and so,
great.
And so it's you know what, you sit here and I've spoken to groups before. I said, look, I'm standing here totally in awe of how God orchestrates life.
That's right.
I said he connects dots that we couldn't even think of the dots, number one. But he takes dots and connects them and says, hey, you think this is good? Wait till you see what else I can do. And so, it's an awesome thing. It really is.
That's incredible. And yeah, like what you just alluded to, the fact that you've been used in Kenny's life all these years, whether you realized it or not, and then to see him, man, to come that way, that's incredible.
It was awesome.
Well, that's awesome. No, I'm so glad you were able to share that, and we'll keep praying for Charles Barkley then.
Oh, we pray for everybody, man.
That's right.
We're all, we all need it.
That's right, absolutely. Well, but before I let you go, I did just kind of want to at least ask you and see how you're doing, because in 2003 you were diagnosed with cancer, and as far as I know, you're in remission. How are you doing? How's everything with that?
Oh, I've never felt better in my life, and that's that's Bryce. That's one of those deals too, where you if you think because you make a decision for Christ or something that, okay, now easy street, life's going to be great. What it does it in these valley moments that you have, or these mountaintop moments that you have, that He's with you every step. And look, if I'm going to say, wow, thank God I won an Emmy, that's awesome. Then am I going to, when things go bad, am I going to shake my fist at him? No, I was tempted to. I was tempted to when I got the word in 2003 that I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But again, Kevin Myers, my pastor, he and I had long talks, and we're talking like, is this like, am I being punished for something? Did I not do something? And it's like, and we looked. I went to John 9, and I'm looking at Jesus on the side of the road, on the side of the road with the blind man, and the blind man's like, and the apostles are looking at this guy and say, who sinned, him or his parents, that he's blind? And Jesus basically says, you're asking the wrong questions. it's not why did this happen? It's how is my Father in heaven going to use this? And man, when I read that, I was like, well, that's great, because that's where I'm going to land the plane on this. This is not why did I get cancer. It's how is God going to use this situation in my life for His glory.
That's powerful.
And when you land the plane on that, then I'm like, I'm not going to begrudge this. I'm just going to. And I know that He's said, look, in this world you will have trouble, but don't give up. I've done bigger things than this, and so that was basically it. I'm saying I'm going to go through this, and I think it was that kind of a deal that really helped me get through it. I had great doctors, but I also had powerful faith, and it wasn't like I said, oh, God healed, so Jesus healed your cancer, right? I said, look, I went to Emory Winship Cancer Institute, where they pumped me full of drugs for chemotherapy, okay? And they did a lot of stuff for me. And I said, but I'll tell you what, I knew every step along the way that I would trust God, period.
That's right.
That there's a reason for this, that there's a reason for these good moments, and there's a reason for these valley moments. And so that's where my faith came into that. And my faith, my family, my friends were tremendous. My medical care was great. And all of those put together had me in remission after chemo in 2006. And it's seven years later, and I still feel great. And so,
great.
But that's where, and on my emails, my signature on all my emails is trust God, ... Period. Not trust God if the next test comes back the way you want it, that says, hey, you're doing pretty well now, or that looks smaller, or that looks like it's in remission. But trust God, period. If they come back and say, this is worse than we thought, all right, still trusting it. That's the whole basis for it. That gets you through some really rugged times. And it carries you. It keeps you humble in the really good times too. That He's behind it all. It's not anything special that you did.
Yeah, well, the fact, I love that saying, trust God, period. And I almost want to end with that, but you kind of brought up a quick thing there, that when things are good, so now things are kind of better, and especially compared to a time of when you have cancer. So personally, because how does that mindset change now that things are good, and to still be just as dependent, to be just as trusting in Him?
Oh, Bryce, there were always things in everybody's life. It was cancer at one point. We adopted these girls, man. It was getting to be so difficult for me and my wife. We looked at each other and said, "What are we becoming? We're losing it here a little bit. What's up?" And then you turn that over again and say, God, what are we doing? I thought we were doing the right thing here. Why are we so frustrated? Why are the kids so frustrated with us? And so there were always these valley moments, these tough times that you pray through, and that you remember that I'm going to trust God. Period. I'm going to trust God, even though the teacher called me again and said, hey, we're having trouble with her. And it's like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. And I think when you get away from that and you start saying, trust me, period, I'll get us through this, man, that's where the problem comes up.
And you're in trouble.
So I think that's, it's not like, okay, I don't have cancer anymore, life's the breeze. Man, there's always something, whether it's a marriage issue, whether it's a parenthood issue, whether it's a work issue. We've all been there. We all have stuff. Some of it's life-threatening. Some of it is just maddening. Some of it takes away your focus on what's important. We all have stuff, and sometimes it's not involving you. Somebody in your family. Somebody, it's a brother, it's a friend. Any of that stuff is in those valleys. Excuse me for my beagle barking over here.
That's all right. Welcome to the show.
But that's the way it is. We all have stuff all the time. But I've found that the only way to get through all that junk is to trust God. Period.
Well, let's end on that and that great perspective, because anybody that's listening is dealing with something in their life, and to have that encouragement, trust God, period, I think is great for today. So, Ernie, man, I really appreciate just your honesty and sharing your heart, and very, very encouraged. I know I am, and I can't wait for the listeners to be encouraged as well. So thanks so much for joining me today, and wish you the best the rest of the summer.
Man, I really appreciate you having me on, Bryce. You have a great day, man.
All right. Thanks a lot. There's Ernie Johnson joining us here on Unpacking It.
For more information about Unpacking It, go to unpackingit.com, where you'll find podcasts, full interviews, videos, blogs, and other great content. Stay in touch by emailing Bryce at unpackingit.com or by calling 704-303-8435. You can also follow Unpacking It on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for your support of the show, and we will unpack the world of faith and sports next week at this same time on this same station. May God bless you.